They say in order to be happy in life, you need to A, find a job you're good at, and B, find a job you love. With a body of work spanning over 5 decades and consisting of more than 100 directing and cinematography credits, John Stephens has fulfilled both those requirements. He has learned, perfected, and innovated the craft of filmmaking.
I joined the Naval Reserves when I was 17, and we were able to solve quite a few problems by putting special cameras, high-speed cameras, in certain positions, and we solved problems on ejection seats and parachutes and various things while I was in the Navy. And when I got out in 1954, I took a lot of this knowledge with me. So I would learn how to hook up cameras to skis. I would always figure out ways of using these cameras to make a picture more interesting. And whether it was a point of view or photographing, a ski going through snow, and the camera would be mounted to the ski and shooting up at my body. So this gave me some very exciting pictures, and I was able to collect a portfolio of ski action pictures. When I got out of the Navy, I took these pictures up to Sun Valley, Idaho. The pictures were quite unusual. I showed them to the publicity department, and they liked them very much, and I was hired actually right on the spot. They'd never quite seen anything like it, so they offered me a job, and I accepted. That was my first professional job in photography when I got out of the Navy.
It was in Sun Valley, Idaho, where John got his first break on a film called Bus Stop, starring Marilyn Monroe. When the assistant cameraman fell ill 10 days into the shoot, John was willing and ready to take his place.
I'd actually learned how to do it. They showed me how to hold a slate and kind of help with carrying the film back and forth and schlepping different things that you do when you're beginning. And I thought it was just a very exciting offer, and I agreed, and they agreed at the publicity department that I could work with them for whatever they needed me. And it was a good opportunity for me to get started. And so I was a second assistant, or even, I guess, a third assistant, but I held the slate, and every time Marilyn Monroe would be photographed, I got a chance to hold the slate up and give the slates scene numbers, and that was a very exciting moment for me. And that really got the adrenaline going, just being around her, but it was just exciting for me to be around a motion picture company and how they would be making setups, and the whole thing was just something totally new and exciting to me. This was the whole beginning of how I got started with the motion picture industry, and through this I got into union and went on to do a lot of other motion pictures. And the first film, major motion picture that I did as a director of photography was on a film called Grand Prix. This film was about race cars. It was with Jim Gardner, Yves Montand, Antonio Sabata. It was a Cinerama picture. It was a widescreen racing motion picture, Formula One racing film. And John Frankenheimer was the director, and he offered me this job of being the second unit director of photography in charge of all the racing footage. And I think I was 30 years old when I got this job. And John Frankenheimer was telling me about this racing film he wanted to do. He said, Johnny, how would you like to get involved with a racing film. He says, how would you photograph a car going 150 miles an hour chasing these Formula One race cars? And I said, what kind of a camera car would you use? Well, in 1963, they didn't have camera cars that went 150 miles an hour. They didn't have any kind of a camera car that you could photograph, because when you're panning and tilting a head on a camera and you're looking through the finder, I think the fastest I've ever gone was like 50 miles an hour, and you couldn't photograph a film, race car that way. So it was something that became quite a challenge to me. So I decided that we had to design and find something and build something which would be a remote-controlled pan and tilt head that would have a video assist, so I could see in my monitor exactly what I was shooting. And I could sit in a race car and be able to have a control that would pan and tilt the camera outside the car, and that we could go around corners at 100 miles an hour or 130 or 40 and get these shots, and I wouldn't be in front and be in danger of being way out in front of a car looking through a camera through an eyepiece, which I wouldn't be able to keep my eye on the eyepiece anyway. I could be in a helicopter with a control unit. The camera would be down on the Formula One race car with James Garner driving it as we're going 150 miles an hour, with 2 or 3 other cars with Yves Montand and Antonio Sabata. And we'd be in the Cinerama screen, you'd see Jim Garner's head. Yves Montand would come up alongside of him, and when Yves Montand would pass in front of him, the camera would pan off of Jim Garner and through the front wheel of the car. The camera would be mounted right beside on a special mount with this pan and tilt head, and it gave me the function of panning 360 degrees all the way around, changing the focus when I came around to a close-up of James Garner, which the camera was 2 feet away. And I could, when we went into a cloud, I could open my f-stop, which would give me more exposure so it wouldn't be so dark. And I had all these functions on this camera. And now, this was in 1965 when we were doing this. And everything was finished, put together, and it all worked, and it was very exciting. And when you see the movie Grand Prix, you'll see all these shots, and you kind of wonder how they did this in that time. We're able to photograph these people so close, and then camera panning off, and you're actually on a race car. The cameras mounted to the cars were just one small part of it, because the aerial photography on the show was all handed down to me too, and I was in charge of making sure that we had the right coverage. We had to come up with a helicopter that was fast enough to go with these race cars, and actually there was nothing in existence that could go 160 miles an hour and maintain that speed. And it was kind of interesting trying to find which helicopters were going to work best for us. I was sitting half inside, half outside, and it was trying to maintain a speed with these race cars. And during the actual race, it was, these cars were up to 160, 70, 80 miles an hour, and straightaway sometimes 200 miles an hour. Maintaining a speed with these race cars, the only way we could do this is to go up in altitude and get up to about 300-400 feet. So I started with a wide shot. We'd literally dive down. This took a little bit of doing for our helicopter pilot. And there was an area in the picture, Spa, Belgium, the actual race day. Track is like 24 miles long, and it had started raining on the other side of this circuit, the track itself. And as soon as race cars went from dry to wet, you saw these big rooster tails coming off the rear end of the cars, and we were able to photograph a lot of actual exciting crashes and excitement that went on during the actual race. This really added to our picture. All I ended up doing, because it got darker, was opening up my f-stop, taking off my neutral density filter, and we continued filming this whole race in the rain. And it was very exciting for us. And we won an Academy Award for this. For the second unit, we won an award, which I share with a lot of other people. In 1968, I was asked to do a picture called Ice Station Zebra. And I was doing the second unit. It was also a Cinerama picture with Rock Hudson and Ernest Borgnine and James Brown. It was about a submarine and about the Russians with MiGs flying up. Well, they had to have somebody photograph the submarine and to get all this exciting footage that they needed. And so they hired me to do this on the second unit. And the second unit is basically a unit that is, when it says in the script they go into action, well, I do the action. And the first unit does all the close-ups of the actors. They needed shots of a submarine that is diving down and doing all these different things, like in Ice Station Zebra. They needed shots of these MiGs coming in over the North Pole, flying through the icebergs, and they had all these different exciting shots in the script. So the second unit goes out and films these exciting shots, and that's what I did. But anyway, while I was doing Ice Station Zebra, I was up at the North Pole. I get a phone call from MGM, and they said that Filmways wanted to talk to me about doing some commercials. So it would be the first Mercedes-Benz commercials to be aired in the United States. And they wanted the cameraman who did Grand Prix to be their first cameraman to film these commercials. I was quite excited about that. I photographed these cars doing all these different things at high speeds. And I did a lot of long lens, and I was able to use all these lenses I used on Grand Prix, and which made the excitement. It was totally unconventional of shooting, they did in shooting American cars. And it was so different, but it was also very exciting to see these cars going around these corners, and you see the suspension and the traction of the cars and how they would all go together. Now, I wouldn't be just filming one car, I'd be filming 6 cars all in a row, and these guys were all about 6 feet apart, going at 70, 80 miles an hour around some of these things, and we would overemphasize and to get more excitement out of it. These particular commercials that we did, they won the Clio. I won a Clio award for the best automotive commercial in 1973. This built up my reputation as being an automobile cameraman director. And so from then on, I became known as a director, cameraman of doing exciting shots of cars. And along with doing my second unit action work, I was asked to do a second unit for Steven Spielberg called E.T. And we knew nothing about the picture. It was very secretive. And it was, I had my crew together. I was the cameraman. Glenn Randall Jr. was the director of the second unit. And we had specific storyboards and exactly what we were to shoot. And we had to stick exactly to the storyboards because Steven Spielberg is very adamant about the particular types of shots that he wants, and they're well thought out, and his storyboard artists work very closely with him and his ideas to get these shots just right. And kids were chasing or being chased by the police, and they had E.T. in a basket, and they were going through this housing project, and off these plateaus where they build houses, and they hadn't built anything at this particular place, so the kids were going off these particular little plateaus, and I figured out, well, maybe I could do something a little extra. I had my small camera. I said, I'm going to put it right on the back of the bicycle, fastened to the bicycle, right behind where the kid pedals. So I'm building this mount, and I'm down putting the mount on and the camera hook up, and this gentleman is looking over my shoulder, and he looks down at me and he says, that's an original idea. I don't remember putting that on the storyboard. And I look up at him, and I said, oh, hi. And I had never met him yet. It was Steven Spielberg. And my director, Glenn Randall, came over, and he was kind of smiling, and he said, John, this is Steven Spielberg. This is John Stevens, my cameraman. And I said, oh, wow. And Steven looked at me, he said, that's a very good idea. I said, I'm anxious to see what it looks like in the dailies. And so we went ahead with the shot. We did all these different things for this shot. It turned out to be a very exciting shot, and he used it in the picture. And he complimented me and said he appreciated what I was able to add over and above what his storyboards were. And that meant a lot to me. I had specific things to shoot with a storyboard, so I knew exactly what I was looking for, and I got them what was on the storyboard, but I would go further and get them something more exciting, a little more unusual, and things that maybe the storyboard artist didn't think about, or maybe the first unit director, didn't have the knowledge that something could be done, in a different way to get something exciting. And I really love doing second unit work because it's where most of the excitement is, and it was an opportunity of just doing the types of filming that I used to do in the Navy, and that's when I went out and did exciting action sequences. We do dangerous things. This is part of our business. Second unit photography is very exciting, and that's what makes it exciting, is that you never know what's going to happen. I've been in this business for quite a few years, and it's been a wonderful business, and it's been very good to me. The motion picture industry has been a way of life, and it's taken me many places in the world, and I've been on many major motion pictures, and it just goes on and on. The credits are quite exciting. It's been a good career, and the film business is really something very special, and it's something that I just really, I've never been sorry for anything that I've done in making and being around motion pictures.